Hey everyone, Bill Sheridan here. And if you follow the MECPA at all, you know that we're big fans of XBRL. We've talked a lot about it here over the years, and you might as well get used to it. We're going to be talking a lot more about it in the days, the weeks, the months, the years to come. We just think it's that important. But in all of that talk, I've never heard as eloquent a defense of XBRL as I heard from Gary Hoover recently. He's an entrepreneur, he's an expert in business. He co-founded Hoover's Incorporated, which is one of the world's largest databases of information about businesses. So he knows his stuff. And during his keynote address at the 2012 XBRL US conference, Gary said that XBRL really is nothing less than the way in which we tell the story behind the numbers on a financial statement. And that story really clarifies financial information for the public, and that's very important. And I just thought that was a brilliant analogy. Gary put it this way. He says, the numbers tell us whether a customer is satisfied or not with a certain transaction, but they don't tell us why. And XBRL really does that for us, or rather helps us do that for ourselves. I cornered Gary after his talk and asked him to sit down and tell me a little bit more about what he meant by all that. Here's what he had to say.
All right, that's good. So I guess my first question would be, you talked a little bit during your speech about the need for more entrepreneurial thinking in governments and nonprofits. Why?
Well, for me, entrepreneurial thinking is really a way of viewing the world. It's not, I've actually urged that they take it out of business schools because everybody thinks entrepreneurship is like a subset, a part of business. It really isn't. People who think like entrepreneurs see opportunities everywhere they look, and they're always seeking ways to do things better, innovate, a better way of doing this, doing that. My last venture was we were going to start a chain of museums, and we desperately need better schools. We need better museums. We need better hospitals. We need better government agencies. We need better driver's license bureaus. We need people who are focused on the customer and have a passion about what they're doing. If there's two things that go into entrepreneurship, it's those two things. You love the customer, but it's got to be good for you. At my age, I got a lot of friends who gave their life to public service and helping others. A lot of those people are very happy now. And I got other friends who've given their lives to themselves. How big is their house? How big is their boat? Whatever. They aren't real happy either. They don't remember their spouse's names. The people who are really satisfied with what they've done in life are the people who've gotten great personal satisfaction from serving others. And most of those people are through business entrepreneurship. But man, we need it everywhere. We need, entrepreneurs in libraries and operas, people who are focused on the customer and love what they're doing.
What do you think is lacking right now in terms of the way our governments and not-for-profits work? Do you think that they might be able to benefit?
What's lacking now in terms of government and nonprofit, in general, it's a lack of understanding how the system really works. I was just reading a piece the other day. It was by somebody who's very anti-capitalist, but they're saying, look, all this neoconservatism and all this jazz, and you can group all kinds of people on the capitalist side, but they're saying, these are people whose entire life is about profit. And profit's all that matters, and you do whatever it takes to make a profit, and if you got to lay off everybody, you lay them off and everything, and that's just such a misunderstood vision of what business and capitalism is all about. Those stories make the headlines, and the Enrons and AIGs make the headlines, but real capitalism is about UPS with its 300,000 employees and people making 60 to 100 grand a year driving trucks and having fully paid benefits for all their employees. Whole Foods Market, I used to be on their board of directors, whatever they're up to, 40, 50,000 people who really love their jobs, and a leadership team who really loves their jobs and has no plan on selling. And if you show a business plan to my friend that founded and runs Whole Foods Market that says they have an exit strategy, he's not going to read the rest of it. I've never written a business plan with an exit strategy. We're not in this to get out of it. We're in it because we like it. Now, if you have outside investors and the right price comes along, you have to look at that. You have to be fair to everybody. But really understanding how the system works. There's so many myths going around that need to be debunked. When I meet high school kids, sometimes it's like, well, I can either go into a life of serving myself and getting rich and go into business, or I can go into a life of public service and go to work for a government or be a lawyer or whatever, Nobody does more public service than Steve Jobs did. Nobody's done more for low-income people in America than Walmart's done. Nobody does more to make our whole society, global society, work than UPS and Federal Express. You know, the American food industry, if you take the restaurants, the grocery stores, everything, convenience stores to high-end restaurants, it's one of the greatest works of mankind. You know, it's just awesome in how effectively it does its job, how cheaply, safely. When was the last time you heard somebody dying from buying food at, giant markets in in Maryland or whatever, you know? It didn't happen. You know, look at our airline system. Since it's been deregulated, it's become dramatically safer and cheaper, you know. People got to understand the highest form of public service is to do something good for other people by giving them a product or service that they want at a reasonable price and a voluntary exchange. Nobody's holding a gun to your head when you go pay that outrageous price for an iPad like both you and I did. You know, I'm like, they're nuts, but hey, it was voluntary. You know, there may not be a little gun when I write my check to the IRS, you know, 4 times a year, but it's not quite as voluntary.
Right. So how does the notion of enhanced financial data and XBRL kind of tie in?
Well, you know, the whole XBRL and all the financial data is capitalism's taken a whack, you know, by the bad behavior, the short-term view of just really a few handfuls of so-called leaders, you know. Most of the business world's going ahead and focus on doing the right thing and trying to create jobs, not eliminate them, and whenever possible. And so, you know, there's a black eye, a big serious black eye. And for a lot of the young college kids, it's all they hear because they read the papers or see the headlines and don't go any deeper and don't understand that for every AIG, there's a Northwestern Mutual Insurance that's built like a rock, and a Geico and a Progressive and a USAA that are, USAA is one of the most amazing companies on earth. It's Texas's biggest financial services company. You know, so they get this misconstrued idea. Key to all that is transparency, honesty, openness. Are these figures legit? Are they the real numbers? And I teach all these classes, kids down to high school level, all the way through people in their 60s and 70s, and how to read financial statements and everything. And man, Americans overall have almost no understanding of economics and a lower understanding of financial statements and what they mean. And even I'm amazed how many people are 50 years old and really don't understand the difference between revenue and profit. And people working in the industry were probably shocked to hear that. But that's the real world out there. So I think all of us have an obligation to teach, go out and speak to groups, but everything we can do to make that data easier to understand, easier to compare, apples to apples. And in my own case, I love studying international companies, and man, that's been a nightmare historically to compare apples to apples, say a Nestle against a Kraft. Reckitt Benckiser, big, wonderful British consumer products company, comparing them with Procter & Gamble. They're both great companies, but the XBRL and all the things that will flow from this are really going to advance that cause.
And CPAs, what kind of role do you think CPAs?
Yeah, the CPAs, I mean, the key is keeping the companies honest, you know, at every level, and there is no question there are scalawags and rascals out there that need to be corralled, and need to be caught, need to be turned in. But I also think the education thing, you know, every CPA in America ought to make sure they speak at least once or twice to a high school group, especially if they have speaking skills. If you have speaking skills, speak 15 times and make up for your friends who aren't as comfortable. But you have to work at it, and you have to figure out how to connect. So, you know, go in there with an annual report on electronic arts. Go in there with an annual report on, you know, some hip-hop record producing company or something. Go in and relate to their world and show, and always bring it back. You know, one of the big problems with studying any kind of data is people that are immersed in data, which I've been all my life, think it's about the data. No, what are the numbers behind that? I grew up as a hobby, and this is bizarre, reading the World Almanac. And every time I look at how many bushels of corn are produced in Indiana, my home state, I don't picture a number. I look at the number, but through that number, I see all those fields. And, you know, it has to be knee-high by the 4th of July, and it's really beautiful. And you're a kid, you can go run and play in the fields and get lost back there and play hide-and-go-seek. I see real corn, and I see, oh, we don't do quite as much as Illinois or whatever. But every number, every revenue on the Walmart revenue line Giant Foods, or I'm trying to think of some of my favorite Maryland company. Well, McCormick in Baltimore is a wonderful company. Just opened a showcase store showing off all their stuff that I'm hearing great reviews of. All those numbers mean something, and they're about people and products. Every revenue number is a transaction where some customer was satisfied by something they got, or not, and telling that story and helping people understand that all numbers are is a scoreboard. We need to spend more time showing the play of the day. Okay, we need to show the people throwing the touchdown, and then say, and that's what gave us the 7. That I'm the guy that makes sure the 7 was earned and the 7 is right, and you can trust the 7 when you read it, when you own your mutual fund and get it, or miss the field goal.
Well, Gary Hoover, thanks so much for joining.
Well, thank you so much. It's great, and I hope you enjoy Austin.